Join one another. Crazy days. Good. We, as a church family, are going to be in Psalm 51 today. We're going to be in Psalm 51, so we're all aware. Old Testament. And we'll read from that in just a little bit here. I had a wonderful thing that happened this past week. I drove past somebody's house and they had their garage door open, and I've never seen a garage more full with stuff. And so I got halfway up the road. There were boxes, and I don't know if they could have put anything else into it. There was no chance of parking a car. They might have been able to park a scooter. I think that might have been about the only thing they could have got in there. And I was going to turn around, and I was going to go back and take a picture of it for two reasons. One, so I could show you the picture today within the message, and then two, to show Deanna that, hey, our garage really isn't that bad compared to this, to look at the two of them. But then my worry was, if I turned around and I took a picture of it, it might be one of your garages, and then you'd be like, my garage, so I've got to clean my garage out. I don't want to put that on anybody. But there was so much clutter, it was amazing how much stuff was in this garage. But then, of course, it made me realize that one of the things that we were supposed to be doing for this spring, and for those of you who don't know, we are still in spring, for this spring was to clean out our garage. Now, the term spring cleaning is actually a religious term, and what happened was way back in the day that Jews would stop for their spring cleaning time, and the entire family would come together and they would clean out the entire house. And the idea behind cleaning out the entire house is they would get any of the yeast, anything that was in there, out of the house, because the bread that was given to those who were walking on the Exodus, on the mass Exodus from Egypt to the Promised Land, they had to make sure there was no sin. They wanted to get out all the sins. So when God dropped the bread, He dropped the manna, and it didn't have anything that would cause that to rise. So it was that flat bread. The yeast would cause it to rise, and yeast, many times in the Bible, is seen as evil or sin. So the whole family would get together in spring. They would all go through, and they would clean the entire house together, which is where the term spring cleaning comes from. And the idea behind it is to get that bad stuff out. So for us, for this spring, one of the things that we have to clean is our garage. And so the hope is, within cleaning that garage, and by the time you're done, that it actually looks like a garage. And a garage, you may have different view on what a garage is, but in our house, the view of the garage is a place we can actually park two cars inside of it, because it's a two-car garage. And everyone has different car garage, 2 car, 3 car, 4 cars. Some people have even more. Some people have barns, outbuildings, whatever it might be. All you do there is you're going to get all those extra buildings. There's more places to clean in the spring. But for a 2-car garage, our goal is to be able to get 2 cars back into it. Because right now we've got 25 to 30 basketballs. We've got Deanna's classroom, because when teachers are done for the year, they got to bring all their stuff back, and then that stuff all gets collected. We've got tools and golf clubs and golf shoes. Shoes from when my kids were probably, 7, 8, 9 years old, that are this big and they don't even fit their feet anymore. And then just stuff that is everywhere that has to come out. And at the end of the day, when you stop and take a look at it, it's going to do one or two things for you. It's either going to be, okay, I don't want to take the time to do that, or you stop and look at it and it causes something to rise within you. And you realize that, we've got all this stuff, but at the same time it causes things inside of us, and you realize it's just chaos. It's like there's chaos. And every time you get something new that goes in the garage, what do you do with it? You put it on top of something else that you meant to go through, or that you meant to get rid of, or that you meant to give away. And then a little bit later you do have another thing, you bring it in, you're like, already put something on there, so you go put it in another spot. And sooner or later it just starts stacking up and stacking up and stacking up until it looks like that garage I was sharing with you. But we never get back to it. We keep adding stuff to it. We keep bringing in new things. We get to the point where we put 2 things and we add a 3rd thing on top of it so that that stuff won't fall down. We'll put it up there just in a certain way, and then we'll take a step back, and if it balances, we're good to go. And then we go inside and we don't shut the door too loud because we don't want to hear it crash. Because if it crashes, then we have to go back out, pick everything up, and stack it back up again so it doesn't fall down. But it's just constant chaos. And for our lives many times are in constant chaos. Now here's the thing about chaos. Chaos, for each one of us, is something that you personally can see. You know where the areas of chaos are. You know where the chaos is in your schedule. You know where the chaos is in your finances. You know where the chaos is in your relationships. But it's not something that you can really see in the mirror. So if I walk away from my chaos, if I walk away from the areas in which I struggle, you won't see that. And I have to look at it. And then I can pretend that it's not even there. And I can then move to the next step of my life and keep on going. But sooner or later, the chaos comes back up. And the one who can see it is you and it's me. But the only one that can deal with it is you and me. And so we have to make a choice whether to do so, or what's going to happen is we're going to keep putting more and more stuff on it. We're going to try and have things balanced. We're going to try and get, oh, we'll put this over here, no, we'll put this over here, we're going to stack a couple things, we'll leave that down. I won't even see that because I put two or three things on top of it. I balanced it just such a way, and then one day we're going to shut a door too hard, we're going to make too loud of a noise, we're going to bump into it, and it's going to all come crashing down. And then we have to make a decision. Do I pick this all back up? Do I clean it all up? Or do I finally decide that this is going to be the day that I'm going to take care of this chaos and clean it up in God's eyes and move on from it forever? How many people have either recently moved, plan to move, or moved at some point in their life? See, we take all of this stuff and put it in these boxes. And then we take it from house to house in that move. And so some of that stuff becomes the chaos from our previous life, and we bring it into our new life. From our previous home into our new home. And then we have to make the decision. What is it that I do with all of this stuff? Some of the stuff I'll label, I'll put it away and remind myself. Some of the stuff, you know what, I haven't used that in years. It could be that china dish or that one thing that holds flowers or something. I'm going to bring those back out and we're going to use those. And some of them we're going to put into a far corner. Even though we're going to keep it, we're like, I hope I never see those again. That's what chaos is. And so, for you and I, how do we deal with the chaos? Because here it is, it's spring cleaning time still. We still have a few more weeks. What is it that we need to spring clean? What is it that you have in your life? What is it that I have in my life that I can see and I know is there, that I know that I need to give to God to allow Him to clean? Because it's really a decision between me and my Savior. It's really a decision between me and my Creator to be able to put these things away so that I can have the kind of relationship with Him that I really, truly want to have with Him. Today, the story that we're going to share is around a guy by the name of David. We brought this up a couple weeks ago in a message. We just touched upon it. This is Psalm 51. I want to read you just the first 4 verses because it deals with David having to deal with something personally. At the beginning part of this is a Psalm of David. And this is when his friend Nathan came to him and called him on the carpet for something. So read the first four verses and then we'll dive back in. David says this, says, "Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love. According to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are proved right when you speak and justified when you judge." Psalm 51 is one of the most emotionally charged psalms you will ever read. And it's a psalm that when people are struggling with addictions, or people are struggling with personal issues, people are struggling with their past, a lot of pastors will take them to the psalm and say, you need to read this psalm, but they don't take it any further. They don't talk about stopping to pray or crying out to God or giving it to the Lord in such a way so that God can hear their voice. And so Nathan has come to David and they've had a discussion, and he's like, you've got to call out to God and really talk to him about this. And here's what had taken place. David saw a young lady by the name of Bathsheba. She was on her roof. She was sunbathing in the evening, and he took it too far. Not only did he take it too far, they ended up coming together. She ended up pregnant. Her husband was away at war. So rather than come out and admit it, David, who should have been away at war, called for the husband to come back. He thought he would try and cover it up. He had this really cool scheme. And so when the scheme came about, Uriah, because he was such a person of character and integrity, didn't follow David's scheme. He walked how God would want him to walk. And so the hope was it would cover up by the two of them coming back together, but he chose not to do so. So now David had to make a choice. And seeing he gave him one chance and then 2 chances, we'll break the story down sometimes. It's a really great story. He sent him back, and Uriah chose not to go to see his wife. So David wrote a letter and gave it to Uriah. And in that letter basically said, Uriah's coming here. when you guys get close to the wall to fight, I want you to pull everyone away so it's just Uriah. And so this Uriah, he takes back the very letter. He's carrying his own death letter. And whenever you would have anything that was written by the king, they would have to seal it with wax in their ring, so that when they opened it, it was a sealed letter. The seal would be broken. Oh, guess what? This is from the king because it's from his ring. So the head guy is reading this, and he's getting this from Uriah, and he's reading it, and he's looking at it, and he's going, okay, this is what we're going to do. So they go into battle, and when the battle is the toughest, it's close to the wall, all that stuff, the head guy has them all pull away, and Uriah gets killed there before everyone. See, now David's adult. Because now he can take Bathsheba in and make him one of his wives, and then the whole thing's covered up and it's all good to go. Problem is, David had a friend named Nathan, and Nathan knew that what he had done was wrong because it had already spread throughout the kingdom. David in the Bible is described as a man after God's heart. And yet, all of these things took place that he chose to do. And it started because of something that he should have done, which was going to war with his armies, leading them. He chose not to, and he stayed back. And when that happened, he got himself in trouble, and he kept trying to cover it up and cover it up and cover it up. He took one box and he put it over here. And then he brought another box in, he's like, where should I put it? Oh, I'll just go ahead and put that here. And then he got this other thing to lay across it, and he was like, man, I'm going to push this box. I'm just going to put this on top of it. And he kept putting more and more and more and more on top of it. He kept stacking up and stacking up, and then one day, it all came crashing down. And for each one of us, we have those areas that in a moment can all come crashing down. Sometimes it's our fault. Sometimes it's not our fault. But in every situation, we have some area that we are the cause for it. And Nathan, David's friend, brought this into him and said, David, you put this and spin this however you want to spin it. But at the end of the day, this is the choice that you make. At the end of the day, all this chaos that is taking place, you still have a part in it. Some of it's your fault, some of it's not your fault. In this case with David, a lot of it is his fault. And so these are the words that David has that he is bringing out as we dive into verse 1. And he says this. He says, have mercy on me, O Lord, according to your unfailing love. So the first thing that we see, if you're someone who's like, there's no way that God can love me how I am. If there's no way because of my past, there's no way because of my struggles, there's no way because of my thoughts or the things that are going on inside of my heart, there's no way that God can love me just as I am. David committed adultery. David wrote the death note for the guy that he had killed. Before that, he got him as drunk as possible. He tried to cover up the entire scheme, and then he allowed all of it to happen. This is a guy after God's own heart. And yet, in the end, God still loves him. So this guy's recognizing, David is recognizing, this king of Israel, saying, God, your love isn't just love, it is unfailing love. It will never, ever, ever fail. And he continues, and he says, according to your great compassion. So not only do you love me, but you know where I have chaos. You know what's going on in my heart. You know when my thoughts wander. You know when I intended to pray, but I never quite got there. You know when I struggled with the love I wanted to show my kids, but I never really showed to them the right way, and now I'm trying to make up for it. You know when whatever it is that you, or has come to your heart and your mind right now that you want to make up for, which is your chaos, that God not only has an unfailing love, but He has compassion for and toward you. It says unfailing love and great compassion, and He says this, blot out my transgression. See, God doesn't see that. God doesn't see your sin. He has no part of that sin. He knows that you have those struggles, and every one of us have those struggles. We all miss the mark of God. But you know it, and I know it. And what David is starting us off with this, as he is sharing this, listen, God's love is unfailing. And His compassion is great. In fact, the only way to even describe it is that it is of God. And at the end of the day, Lord, would you just blot out the struggles that I have? See, David and Bathsheba ended up having a child. from them. And they lost that child. And so David had to go and pray and pray and pray as this was all taking place. All the culmination from all the chaos had taken place, and David knows that this is on him. The next verse it continues, and he says this, wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. Wash away all my iniquity, all the struggles, everything that's going on. Wash it away, and then cleanse me from my sin. That word cleanse that's used in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, the word cleanse that is being used here was actually for the lepers. And so if you were someone that had leprosy, you would actually put a part into a leper's colony. Because nobody wanted to catch it. It was, at times contagious. There was all kinds of things that they thought about it. There was things they didn't know. But if you got leprosy, you were going to die. That's how everyone saw it. So they actually had colonies, islands, all that stuff, where they would send the people away. But there were also people that were cleansed to the point to where, hey, they have leprosy, and then they kept cleaning and cleaning and cleaning, doing all these different kinds of cleaning, and the next thing you know, they didn't have the leprosy anymore. Now people still looked at him, weren't you the guy that had leprosy? Yeah. Aren't you the guy that had leprosy? Yeah. What are you doing with everyone here? Well, I was cleansed so much to the point that I no longer have leprosy. They couldn't come up with the right way. They didn't know exactly how to do it. But we have this today. There's certain sicknesses that people have, and they're like, oh, there's not a cure for it. We don't have a cure. And then suddenly someone goes back and they're like, it's completely gone. It's not there anymore. We don't know why. We can't tell you why. For whatever reason, it's gone. They've been cleansed from it. And they check in 3 months, and then 6 months, and then a year, and then 3 years, and then 5 years. I have a gentleman that comes here, and every few months he comes up and says, hey, I'm getting checked again. And it was every month, and then it was every 3 months. I'm getting checked again, and then every 3 months went to 6 months. And this past time of 6 months, he's like, it's looking like it's going to be every year. Because for whatever reason, it's all gone. The stuff that they thought I had is no longer here. So it can happen. David is saying this, cleanse me like you would cleanse that leper that everyone was sure was going to die, that everyone had already cast out, that everybody looked at differently, that everyone looked down upon. Cleanse me so much that at the end of the day, I know that I'm clean. And when I do that, the only one that I can give that credit to through that cleansing is God. The only one that I can give the credit to for that cleansing is God. So see, we have to take ownership in the areas that we have chaos. Because if you have chaos in your life right now, whatever that chaos might be, you've allowed that chaos. You've allowed that struggle. And you have some type of ownership you have to take in that chaos. But if you want to have it truly cleansed, you got to give it to God. You've got to be able to talk to Him enough about it and trust Him enough that He recognizes it, He sees it, and He can say, I'm bigger than all that. Yeah, you might not have as much, and yeah, you might struggle, and yeah, your schedule might be a little bit busy for a little while, but at the end of the day, I'm going to give you my unfailing love, I'm going to show you my compassion, and I'm going to wipe all of this clean. So David continues, and he says this, for I know my transgressions. Who knows them? David knows them. Just like you and I know the areas in which we struggle. We know when we get angry. We know when we raise our voice. We know when we say words we shouldn't say. We know when we just get complacent. We know when we just procrastinate. We know when we should do something and yet we do something else. We know when things aren't a good idea, and we know good from bad. We really do know that at the end of the day. And every time we choose what God would not choose, we add chaos to our life. And so David is giving us an equation to just follow us step by step, that in the end, we wouldn't have to worry about all of that chaos. But it starts with this. You have to know, you have to admit, you have to come clean during spring cleaning with yourself. So David says this, for I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. See, you can't see my sin. I can't see your sin. And yet, I know what it is. I know what my struggles are. We can't see lust. We can't see greed. We can't see an addiction. We can see what happens from those. We can see what happens at the end of those. But when they're taking place, We don't know that about them. They never meant to and they never wanted to. But you can. That's your struggle. And I can't. It's my struggle. The bottom line is this: I don't know all your struggles, and you don't know all my struggles. But you know your struggles, and I know my struggles. David had to come clean with himself before he can handle all the chaos. He says, "For I know his transgressions, and my sin is always before me." And what happens with this is that we know the sin, and then we worry that someone else might see it. Or we worry that someone else might hear it. And because of that, many times we never deal with it. This is the king. And he is taking this to the king. Because it's only the ultimate king that can bring these out before that person and cleanse them. And the next verse he says this. He says, he says, "For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you, you only have I sinned." See, I think many times when it comes to sin, we don't like to talk about it. We don't like to have a discussion about it. I was taught growing up in the church that I grew up in that there was different kinds of sin. Like if you sinned this way, that was considered a mortal sin. If you considered it this way, that was just kind of a bad sin. So as long as I did 10 really good things, but I only had 9 sins in a day, I did pretty well. And I'm on the good side. So the scale went to my balance. Now the next day I did 6 really good things and I only did 3 bad things. That's a really good day. One day I did 10 good things and I can remember 1 bad thing that I did. So I'm way ahead. So the next day when I had 1 good thing and 10 bad things, it's okay, because I made up for it for the other days. And so we put this balance in this scale in our minds and in our hearts a lot of times that says that God should be good with that. God should know that should be good. If there were a standard of how good you are, if there was a standard, where is it in the Bible? Because the Bible says the only thing that is good, the only thing that is good is God. That's it. God is good. So when we do those bad things, yes, there's someone on the other end that feels those or hears those or sees those, but who is it at the end of the day that you're sinning against? You're sinning against God. Joseph, when he was with Potiphar's wife, she said, "Hey, why don't you come and hang out with me for a while? And, my husband's away, and he'll never know." And he didn't say, "Hey, listen, we can't do this thing because this is bad." He said, "I can't do this because I would sin against God." Doesn't that change our mindset? Doesn't it change our heart? I don't want to treat you badly because I don't want God to see that I'm treating you badly, even though he sees it. And on top of it, I don't want to be the guy doing it because I know that's against God. That's against one of God's children. That's against someone that God has unfailing love for. That's against someone that God has ultimate compassion for. And because of it, we carry that chaos with us, and we push it down because we don't allow God in the equation. That's who we're sinning against. When I sin against you and you sin against me, when I make things up about you and you make up things about me, when I say stuff that I don't need to be talking about, when I gossip, when I do all those things that need to be nowhere in my life, it's against God because it's against what it is that he teaches. When David messed up, he messed up big. He screwed up just about every commandment that you can screw up in just a couple chapters of Scripture. But at the end of the day, when he recognized that it was against God, now, if he can put God first in it, by treating God the right way, then he'll naturally treat others the right way. He will speak about others the right way. He will take all this chaos and clear it out and cleanse it. Last part, it says, "Against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are proved right when you speak and justified when you judge." Now, this is where a lot of us stop, because we automatically think about God's judgment. And we think, well, God's judgment is going to say this, and God's judgment is going to do this, and I already know that, and some people even say this, I'm damned to hell, and I'm for eternity, and I'm just going to live as long as I can, because then I know when it's time to be done, it's time to be done. I'm going to hell because I did this sin or I committed this sin or whatever it might be. And when we do that, when we focus on that doom, we miss the portion about it being God's unfailing love, which is more powerful in your life, in your everyday walk. Which do you believe is more powerful? God's unfailing love and His great compassion, or anything that you put up against Him? Anything. Take the strongest thing that you can think of and put it up against God. Who wins? Pick an Avenger. Pick a superhero. Pick Batman with a school Batmobile. Who wins? For younger kids with their dad, strongest guy in the world, right? They even know that God wins. So whatever it is that you have, whatever that transgression is, whatever it is that you know is against God, that is stopping you in your walk with God, what you've said is, this is more powerful than the one who brings me that unfailing love and great compassion. When Hurricane Katrina hit many years ago, we went down about 10 months after it hit in Mississippi. Everyone talks about New Orleans. New Orleans got nothing compared to what happened in areas of Mississippi. The levees net broke because New Orleans is under sea level, and I don't know why you build a city under sea level, but that's a whole other story. But Mississippi is where the eye of the hurricane hit, and they still didn't even know some of the addresses of the places. They had to spray paint them on the ground to try to figure out where that. And they used in-ground pools from aerial pictures to say, okay, the hotel is here, and then, well, we don't have the records because they went out about 100 feet, so this would be some guy's house. Another 100 feet, that would be this guy's house. And look, there's half a road, so that road must have been here. It was unbelievable. This is almost a year later. And so we had to deliver siding and just different things to different people's houses that had been cleared to the government, and to take the stuff in. And so one of the places we had to take to was a person's house. And when we got to the person's house, it was up on blocks. And so we were talking to them about it, and the lady came out and said, yeah, my house, it used to be right there, but now it's here. And I said, oh, so you had to move it because it was on these blocks. And she said, oh, no, we didn't have to move it. She said the hurricane moved it. I'm like, oh, so like blew your house over? And she said, no, we were looking down the road, and you could see this wall of water coming at us. And it was like the craziest thing, and all of a sudden power and everything started, snapping, and things were flying, and it was like, we're going to die. And so they all ran inside the house because it was the only thing that they knew to do. And the water rushed in, and they said at one point it was actually taller than or higher than telephone poles. And if you want to know how, I'll take a look at the telephone pole. It was above the telephone poles. And it rushed in, it literally picked their house up, and it stood it up this way, and then it brought it back down, and then it seemed to be the end of where the water was going, and then the water rushed back out. But when it rushed back out, and it dropped it on this, it was on this side of the pole, and when it came back down, it hit this side of the pole, and the house dropped down. And so the house used to be over here on the side of the pole, and now it's on this side of the pole. And she said, so we just put it back on the blocks right there because we couldn't move it, and we weren't going to move it. And I'm looking and I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. So I said, so you saw a wall of water, and it picked your house up, and it brought it over, and it landed on that. She's like, yeah. I go, what do you think about that? She goes, God saved us. For whatever reason, God saved us. She goes, so I'm still here. Like, that's a really great way to look at it. I said, so if you were to die today, do you know for sure then that you're going to heaven, or do you think that's something you're still working on? And she turned to look at me, she's like, what? I go, if you were to die today, if that were to happen, and you died, and all of a sudden you came before God, do you know for sure that you would have a place in heaven, or is that something you're still working on? And she looked right at me, she was as serious as could be, and she's like, I would go straight to hell. And I stopped for a second, because no one's ever answered that. She goes, I would go straight to hell. I said, explain that to me, because 1 second ago you just told me that God saved you, and then the next second you're telling me you would go straight to hell. And she was like, yeah, I've done this wrong, and I've done this wrong, and I've done this wrong, and I've screwed this up, and I've messed this up, and I know God's not pleased about that. I said, you're right, you've done all those things, because you told me. I believe that. I haven't been around for anything, don't even know. But you're telling me that with all those things, that you're going to go to hell because you don't believe that God loves you enough to allow him into heaven? To allow you into heaven. She stopped and looked at me. She looked around for a little bit. She thought about it. She's like, I never thought about it that way. And so, see, many times we have these things. We have this chaos. We have this clutter. And we know what it is. I had just met this lady. And she just told me one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard. And she showed me where the road was with all this water coming down, and how it picked their house up, flipped around, and dropped it back down the other side of a hole. And she was sure that God had saved her from it, but that she would go straight to hell. Because at the end of the day, she knew what she did was wrong in God's eyes, but she didn't believe that his love was enough to overcome all of it. And I'm here to tell you today, it is. Do you know how I know that? Before I tell you how, I'm going to share with you 3 things. Because one thing I know about you and one thing you know about me, I've got chaos. You've got chaos. You have some boxes that you've labeled and you put way up in the attic and hidden. And you're the one that put them there. And you've got other ones that you have labeled, they're kind of out, and they're okay if they're seen, but you put some stuff on top of it, and you've added some other stuff on top of it, and some more stuff on top of it. And it's sitting there just the perfect spot. Don't move it too much because it comes crashing down. If it comes crashing down, then I got to choose whether or not I'm going to pick all that stuff up or if I'm going to handle it. And that's that chaos that's in our life. David and Bathsheba lost this child. Bathsheba lost her husband through it. Through a guy that was a man that was after God's own heart. But David turned with every ounce of who he was and turned it back to God and said, Lord, give me your unfailing love, because I know where I struggle. So whatever the chaos is, this is what we need to do. Your first thing is you've got to recognize, and you've got to be honest with God about that chaos. You have to be truthful. You can't keep going around and saying stuff that you know really isn't true, but you've told yourself in your heart that it is. And some of that includes God can never love me enough. God can love you enough and does love you enough. So the first thing is that we need to do is you've got to admit that, hey, listen, some of the cause that's going on with this is mine. Some of the struggle that's going on is mine. Some of the choices are because of the choices I make. And the second thing that you have to do, you've got to clear out everything. Everything. So it's in the open, so the one that you were sinning against, and you can go through it. You have to cleanse the temple before you can allow the Spirit in. Listen to that again. You need to cleanse the temple before you can allow the Spirit in. So if your heart is hardened, if your thoughts are wicked, and they all are, we all have that. There's always something in there. Because there's going to be that one box in the corner. Whatever it might be, you have to clear that out completely so that you and God can talk about it and get through it together. And then you have to make the decision, God, is your love big enough to take care of this thing that I've hidden in the corner for so long? You see, the Spirit can't come in until you have cleansed the temple completely. So we say, yeah, this is my issue, this is my struggle. And here's what's going on in my heart, here's what's going on in my mind. And I'm going to clear it out. Here you go, God, this is yours, go ahead and take it. You then need to make the decision to fill that then with God's Spirit. We don't take a box out and then we put a box back in. We take the box out, we allow God's Spirit in, and then we walk along with Him together. Listen to these words of David again. This is what he says. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away, how much of my iniquity? all of my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. My sin is against God. For I know my transgressions. I know my transgressions. You and I know our hearts. You and I know our minds. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you, you only have I sinned and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are proud, you are proved right when you speak, and justified when you judge. See, the part that's not talked about in this psalm is one of the most important parts of all. David had a guy by the name of Nathan who wasn't afraid to come and say to him, hey man, when you talk like that, I hear you. And all these people that you work with hear you. And on Sunday, you're acting one way. And when you pull in the church parking lot, you're acting one way. And when you're with your kids, you're completely different. And when you're with your workers, you're completely different. And when you're in public, or you're in the society, community, whatever it might be, you're completely different. So you got your God face, your God time, your God way, and all that kind of stuff, and you go out, you're completely different. At the end of the day, you keep choosing to do that. But I don't think God likes that very much. I don't think God is all that impressed with it. And I know God won't be fooled, but I also know that God loves you so much that He will have compassion on it. And God's big enough that He has it. So you and I have to make the decision sooner or later to have that person alongside of us. To have that person that, hey, I heard this message. Hey, God was saying this, and hey, I was praying, and this is what came up, and hey, guess what? There was something in the corner of my attic, and I finally got rid of it. And I let the Spirit in. If we don't have that person alongside of us, then we'll continue to sin. We'll continue to collect boxes. We'll continue to stack them up. And we'll continue to have chaos. And who will recognize it? In your life, you will. In my life, I will. Eventually, I may recognize it with someone else, and I can go and put my arm around and say, hey, everything all right? You doing okay? You sure things are good? You just seem really stressed, or you seem like life's kind of beating you up? Whatever it might be. Now, some people won't do this because they're afraid of what's going to come out next, right? But too many of us lie about it along the way. And I'll prove it to you. Someone today is going to see you're going to never see, or you're going to see someone famous and go, hey, how you doing? And you go, I'm doing all right. I'm doing good. And the inside you're going, I got 74 boxes to clean out of my temple. I've got 300 boxes. It's spring cleaning. My garage is full. I have a 6-car garage, but I really only have a 2-car garage. But I have enough stuff to fit in my 6-car garage. I've got that much stuff I have to clean out. You have to have someone in your life, and I have to have someone in my life that is going to be strong enough to just ask the questions and say, is that really what God wants for you? As a husband, as a wife, as a mom, as a dad, do you really think that that's where God wants you to go? Do you really think He wants you chasing all that money when your kids are at the age they are and they just need you? Do you really think that as a parent or as a grandparent that they just want you to just kind of be their friend when someone needs to stop them enough to say, hey, God's Word says this. I'm just trying to share with them what God's Word said. Because of the fear of what you might get back and not continue to give it back to God and His unfailing love and His great compassion. So how do we know for sure that God's unfailing love and great compassion can wash all this away? David is coming to God because of this child that he had with Bathsheba, that he committed adultery, that he got the guy murdered, that he wrote his death note, that he tried to cover up while all of his warriors were away, and he was back at the kingdom. Hey, they'll never find out, they'll never know. That same woman he brought in as one of his concubines, and they ended up having another child. And the child that they had was Solomon. But they couldn't have Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived, until David admitted, I've got a lot of chaos to clear out. And David realized that after I cleared it out, I allowed God in completely. And even though I'm going to carry this for the rest of the days of my life, I got a guy like Nathan who's alongside me and says, hey, I love you enough, just making sure you're okay, but I just want to remind you that God sees you and He has great compassion on you. And His love for you as a spouse, as a parent, as a grandparent, as a friend, as a coach, in any role you're in is unfailing. Never ending. And it'll be with you every step of the way. Right where you sit, if you just close your eyes for a moment, and Mike and Brendan Don are going to come up here. I want you to just take a look within your life. Before you is your 2-car, your 3-car, your 6-car, your 1-car garage. It's your garage. You can make it look whatever you want to have it look like. How much clutter is in there? How much chaos is in there? How much is going on? We look at our hearts, we look at our minds, that become this little garage. How much is in there that we need to clear out completely? And that we need to take before God? Because it's keeping us from that ultimate relationship with Him. Maybe you're someone today that's never stopped long enough to say, man, I haven't even allowed God in. I haven't even allowed Him to just walk alongside of me and say, let's get rid of this box. Let's work on this box. Let's just clear everything out and we'll allow His Spirit in. Each one of us is in a different spot right now. Each one of us has that chaos. But each one of us can also invite God's unfailing love, His great compassion, and how He can wash all this away when we will allow. Heavenly Father, as we stop here for the next couple minutes and think about all the chaos that we have within our life, God, at the end of it, would you help us to rest and know that you can overcome all of this? That if a man who is after your own heart could make the mistakes that he made, that at the end of the day, you loved him, God, you can do the same for each one of us. Lord, as we head over these last few weeks of spring, God, help us to take the time for some spring cleaning. Help us to rid that chaos and to invite your Spirit in. Lord, we will give you this time. We'll give you every moment. We'll give you every box. We'll give you every single area of chaos in our lives. In return, rest in the fact that you love us and have compassion upon each one of us.